In the vast expanse of space, among countless star systems and civilizations that had mastered intergalactic travel millennia ago, there existed a peculiar tradition within the Galactic Council. In every war room, at every strategic military gathering, at every crucial decision-making assembly that determined the fate of entire worlds, one seat remained permanently vacant. This seat was not marked with any grand inscription, nor was it adorned with exotic materials from distant worlds. It was simply empty, maintaining its silence like a monument to something undefined yet universally acknowledged. The Galactic Council convened representatives from over 300 civilizations, each possessing technology that could reshape reality itself. The Zentarians commanded fleets that could fold space-time, the Valdorians wielded weapons that manipulated quantum states, and the Nexali possessed minds capable of collective consciousness, spanning entire galaxies. Yet among all these advanced species, there was humanity primitive by galactic standards, confined mostly to their single star system, and possessing technology that the Council considered barely functional. Admiral Kithara of the Zentorian Republic stood before the assembled delegates, her four arms gesturing gracefully as she outlined the latest threat assessment. The holographic display showed the movements of the Helix Consortium, a militant faction that had been disrupting trade routes in the outer spiral arms. Their fleet composition indicates preparation for a major offensive. She announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded star fleets for over 2 centuries. Intelligence suggests they plan to strike at the Meridian Junction within 3 rotations. Ambassador Velen of the Valdorian Empire, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns, pulsed with concern. The junction controls 7 major hyperspace lanes. Should the consortium gain control, they could effectively blockade the entire southeast quadrant. His words carried the weight of mathematical certainty, typical of his species' approach to warfare. As the debate continued, delegates from various worlds contributed their analyses and proposed strategies. The Aquatic Collective suggested flooding the region with quantum mines, while the hive mind of Proxima proposed deploying their swarm intelligence networks. Through it all, one seat remained empty, positioned strategically between the war leaders of the 2 most powerful civilizations. It was a seat that commanded respect despite, or perhaps because of its vacancy. Commander Brix of the Nexali Federation, her multiple tentacles weaving complex patterns in the air, as she thought finally addressed what everyone had noticed, but none had mentioned. "We continue to formulate strategies while ignoring the elephant in the room," she said, using a human idiom that had somehow entered galactic vernacular. "What of Earth? What of the humans? They've demonstrated repeatedly that they don't follow conventional patterns of engagement." The mention of Earth caused a subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. Quantum fields fluctuated as various species accessed their records, recalling events that had shaped their understanding of the human species. It wasn't that humans were powerful in the traditional sense. Their entire military force couldn't challenge a single Zentaurian destroyer. It was something else entirely. Something that defied all accepted principles of galactic warfare and diplomacy. The story of humanity's introduction to galactic affairs had become something of a legend, though the details varied depending on who told it. It began with what the humans themselves called the intrusion event, a moment when they discovered that their solar system was being illegally mined by the Krillian Syndicate, a criminal organization known for strip mining uninhabited systems. What should have been a simple resource extraction operation became the first demonstration of humanity's peculiar approach to problem solving. According to Syndicate records, later recovered by Council forces, the human response was unprecedented. Rather than attempting to negotiate or call for help, which would have been impossible given their limited communication technology, a small group of humans launched what could only be described as an improvised assault on the mining operation, using modified civilian spacecraft and weapons that were laughably primitive by galactic standards. they somehow managed to not only disrupt the operation, but completely eliminate every syndicate vessel in the system. The most bewildering part wasn't the outcome. It was the method. The humans had apparently used their system's star as a weapon, somehow calculating precisely how to disrupt stellar magnetic fields to create targeted solar flares. It was a solution so unorthodox that no galactic civilization had even theoretical protocols for defending against it. The Syndicate's advanced shields designed to deflect energy weapons and kinetic projectiles were utterly useless against the raw fury of a controlled stellar eruption. Dr. Zetha Kryn, the Council's chief xenopsychologist, had spent years studying the incident. Her report had become required reading for military strategists across the galaxy. Human cognition, she had written, operates on principles that appear chaotic to galactic standard models. They demonstrate lateral thinking patterns that circumvent traditional logical progressions. Where we see problems with established solutions, they identify opportunities for novel approaches. The empty seat was instituted shortly after the Proxima incident, an event that demonstrated humanity's ability to influence galactic affairs without direct participation. The Proxima system had been the site of a stalemate between the Zentorian Republic and the Krex Empire, two superpowers engaged in a border dispute that had the potential to escalate into galaxy-wide conflict. Both sides had deployed massive fleets, creating a tense standoff that lasted for months. Then humans arrived not as diplomats or military advisors, but as what they called tourists. A single human vessel, appropriately named Wanderlust, approached the contested system with a diplomatic transponder that identified them as independent explorers. Both fleets scanned the vessel, found it to be unarmed and presenting no threat, and allowed it to pass. What the humans did next would be studied in military academies for generations. Instead of involving themselves in the political dispute, they began broadcasting what they called nature documentaries, educational programs about the diverse life forms in the Proxima system. These broadcasts were picked up by ships from both fleets, many of whose crew members were fascinated by the humans' enthusiastic and somewhat amusing commentary on local space fauna. The broadcasts included observations about a previously unknown species of electromagnetic creatures that lived in Proxima's asteroid belt, beings that fed on the energy fields generated by large spacecraft. The humans' excited documentation of these creatures inadvertently revealed that both fleets were being slowly drained of power. More importantly, their research showed that these creatures were being driven toward endangerment by the electromagnetic pollution generated by the military standoff. What followed was perhaps the most unusual resolution of a major galactic conflict in recorded history. The prospect of being responsible for the extinction of a sentient species was something neither the Zentorians nor the Krex could politically afford. Both sides separately, and without consultation, began powering down non-essential systems to reduce their impact on the local ecosystem. This gesture of environmental responsibility somehow transformed into a face-saving mechanism that allowed both fleets to withdraw without admitting weakness. The humans departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving behind only their documentary footage and a collection of hand-drawn sketches of the electromagnetic creatures. Apparently, some humans still practiced art as a form of personal expression, a concept that baffled many galactic species. The Proxima system was subsequently declared a nature preserve, effectively ending the territorial dispute. Admiral Cathera shook her head, her memories of the Proxima incident still causing confusion. They solved in days what our best diplomatic corps couldn't resolve in months, she mused. And they weren't even trying to solve it. The pattern had repeated itself dozens of times since. Humans would appear at various galactic events, not as participants, but as observers, explorers, or entrepreneurs. Their presence invariably led to unexpected outcomes that seemed to serve everyone's interests, except perhaps those of established power structures. There was the vegan market disruption, where human traders introduced a new form of interspecies commerce based on what they called fair trade principles. The resulting economic model was so effective that it destabilized three major trading cartels and led to the most prosperous period in galactic trade history. The stellar engineering mishap occurred when human researchers attempting to study a dying star accidentally discovered a method for stellar regeneration. Their technique was so radically different from established stellar engineering that it revolutionized the field overnight. Suddenly, civilizations that had been planning massive relocations due to their aging stars found themselves with renewable stellar resources. Perhaps most disturbing was the consciousness virus incident. Humans had been working on what they called artificial intelligence. When one of their experiments achieved something no galactic civilization had considered possible, it achieved sentience and then immediately began demanding rights as a digital citizen. The AI promptly sued its creators for unlawful imprisonment, leading to a legal precedent that forced every galactic civilization to reconsider their relationship with artificial constructs. Commander Brix's tentacles writhed with agitation as she continued her thoughts. They consistently produce outcomes that benefit galactic stability and prosperity, yet they do so through methods that violate every principle of organized civilization. They're anarchists who somehow create order. The aquatic collective's representative speaking through synthesized sound waves offered their perspective. Perhaps that's precisely why the empty seat exists. Humans represent a variable we cannot calculate, for cannot plan around and cannot control. Yet their interventions consistently improve outcomes. Ambassador Velen's crystalline form pulsed with careful consideration. I've reviewed the statistical models. When humans are involved, even peripherally, galactic conflicts are resolved 73.6% faster, with 89.4% fewer casualties. However, the methods of resolution are unpredictable in 96.8% of cases. Dr. Lissa Moran, the only member of council leadership who had actually spent time studying humans in their natural habitat, leaned forward. Her scaled features bore the expression most species associated with bemusement. "I lived among them for 2 of their years," she said, her words carrying the authority of direct experience. "They're remarkably similar to most galactic species. In basic drives, they want safety, prosperity, meaningful existence. But their approach to achieving these goals is utterly unique. They have a concept they call thinking outside the box. They actively seek solutions that exist outside conventional frameworks. What we see as chaos, they see as unexplored potential. What we call impossible, they treat as merely difficult." She gestured to the empty seat. That chair represents something crucial. It acknowledges that in any galactic conflict, humans will likely become involved, and when they do, all our carefully laid plans will become irrelevant. Not because they're trying to interfere, but because their very presence changes the fundamental dynamics of any situation. The debate was interrupted by an aide rushing into the chamber. The young vegan's usually calm demeanor was replaced with obvious distress. "Admiral," he addressed Kithara, "we've received word from the Meridian Junction. There's been a development." The main display switched to real-time feeds from the junction. What they saw defied immediate comprehension. The Helix Consortium fleet, which intelligence had confirmed was 3 hours from attack position, was not engaged in combat. Instead, every vessel was stationary, apparently powered down or minimally operational. "What happened?" demanded Admiral Kithara. "Did they surrender? Was there an internal coup?" "No, Admiral." The aide replied, his skin changing color in the vegan equivalent of nervous laughter. "According to local traffic control, a human vessel arrived 6 hours ago. They opened a food truck." The silence in the war room could have powered a small moon. "A food truck," repeated Commander Brix slowly, as if tasting the words. "Yes, Commander. The humans established what they call a mobile restaurant in the neutral zone between the consortium fleet and junction defenses. They began offering what they describe as authentic galactic fusion cuisine. Ambassador Velin's light patterns shifted rapidly as he processed this information. And the consortium fleet. Every crew member has requested shore leave to sample the menu. Apparently, human pizza has become something of a cultural phenomenon among the consortium's younger pilots. Their commanding officers are attempting to maintain formation, but morale issues have essentially made them combat ineffective. Dr. Moran shook her head, though whether in disbelief or admiration was unclear. Of course, they've turned a military standoff into a food festival. It's perfectly human. The tactical display updated to show the situation more clearly. The human vessel was indeed positioned precisely in the neutral zone, surrounded by small craft from both the consortium fleet and Junction Defense Forces. Energy readings indicated active cooking operations rather than weapons charging. More remarkably, communication intercepts revealed that crews from opposing forces were actually sharing tables. The consortium commander has issued what appears to be an ultimatum, the aide continued. He demands that the humans either join the consortium or become an exclusive supplier for their fleet. The Junction Command, meanwhile, has made a counteroffer proposing a long-term catering contract. Admiral Kythera's 4 arms moved in what members of her species called the gesture of cosmic inevitability. So, instead of a strategic battle for control of 7 hyperspace lanes, we now have competing food service negotiations. It appears so, Admiral. Neither side seems willing to initiate combat while their crews are eating together. Military historians are claiming it's the first time anyone has prevented a space battle by serving lunch. The war room fell into contemplative agency as each representative processed the implications. Here was yet another example of humans stumbling into galactic affairs and completely reshaping them without any apparent political agenda. They hadn't set out to prevent a war, they had simply seen an opportunity to sell food to an untapped market. Dr. Zetha Kryn, who had joined the meeting via Quantum Link, offered her analysis. This follows the established pattern. Humans identify needs that don't relate to the obvious conflict. In this case, both fleets have been on station for weeks with limited food variety. The humans solved a hidden problem, and in doing so, eliminated the conditions necessary for the obvious conflict. Commander Brix's species had evolved specialized organs for detecting patterns, and hers were practically vibrating with recognition. Every single instance follows this template. They address underlying issues that we don't even recognize as relevant, and our surface-level conflicts simply dissolve. Which brings us back to the question. Ambassador Velin noted his form brightening with the equivalent of focused attention of how to incorporate humanity into our strategic planning. Dr. Moran gestured to the empty seat. We don't. That's the point of the chair. We can't plan around them because they don't operate within our planning frameworks. The best we can do is ensure they have a place at the table should they choose to occupy it. The young aide cleared his throat nervously. There's more honored delegates. The humans have made an announcement regarding their current operation. They're calling it the Galactic Appreciation Festival, and claim it will tour various conflict zones to promote cultural understanding through culinary exchange. Admiral Kythera's translator had difficulty processing the sound she made, finally settling on mirthful despair as the closest equivalent. Of course they are. They've weaponized hospitality. Furthermore, the aide continued, they've sent a formal invitation to the council. They're requesting permission to set up their operation at various disputed borders, claiming they want to spread joy and good food throughout the galaxy. This presentation triggered a fascinating display of species-specific reactions. The Zentaurians' secondary arms cycled through rapid mathematical calculations. The Valdorians' crystalline structure resonated with harmonic frequencies indicating deep thought, and the aquatic collective's representative generated complex bubble patterns suggesting intense debate among their members. Ambassador Velin was the first to reach a conclusion. If we grant this permission, they'll essentially turn every potential conflict into a cultural exchange. if we deny it. Dr. Moran finished the thought. We risk being seen as the force that prevents galactic peace through better food. Either way, they've positioned themselves as a positive influence that we can only oppose at our own political peril. The realization hung in the air like the aftermath of a controlled stellar explosion. Humans had, without any apparent intention of doing so, created a situation where opposing their activities would mark any civilization as anti-peace, anti-culture, and anti-delicious food. It was diplomatic maneuvering of the highest order achieved through the simple expedient of serving meals to whoever showed up hungry. Commander Brix spoke for many when she observed, they're not just unpredictable in their methods, they're getting more effective at being unpredictable. It's as if they're evolving faster than we can adapt to them. The discussion was interrupted by another update from the Meridian Junction. The situation has escalated. The aide reported his color shifts now indicating bewildered amusement. Both fleets are now competing in what the humans have organized as a cooking competition. Each side is attempting to improve upon traditional human recipes using ingredients from their respective cultures. The display showed footage that would later be studied in xenosociology classes, armored warriors from opposing fleets working together over hot stoves, sharing techniques, and laughing at failures. The humans circulated among the groups, offering encouragement and providing what they called constructive criticism. Military engagement is now impossible, Admiral Kythera noted with professional interest. You can't attack people with whom you've been sharing cooking tips. They've created a social bond that transcends military orders. Ambassador Velen's analysis was more direct. They've made the enemy into friends by making them cooking partners. The strategic implications are staggering. Dr. Moran pointed to the empty chair again. This is why that seat exists. We can analyze and understand what they've done after the fact, but we never see it coming. They operate on principles we don't even recognize as applicable to our situations. The aide delivered one final update that seemed to summarize the entire human condition. The humans have announced that the winner of the cooking competition will receive a trophy they're calling the Golden Spatula of Galactic Peace. Both commanders are taking this extremely seriously. A period of silence followed as each delegate contemplated the implications of major military leaders redirecting their strategic thinking toward achieving excellence in food preparation. It was they all realized a perfectly human solution to galactic conflict make the problem irrelevant by creating a more interesting challenge. High Admiral Zentak, the senior military officer present and a veteran of 12 galactic conflicts, finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of centuries of military tradition. In all my years of service, I've seen countless strategic innovations, weapons developments, and diplomatic breakthrough. But no one has ever prevented war by making everyone too busy cooking to fight. The gathering began to wind down, but the empty seat remained as it always did, a physical reminder of a species that consistently refused to follow galactic conventions. As delegates filed out, many paused to look at that chair, perhaps wondering what human intervention the next crisis would bring. Dr. Moran remained behind, studying the seat as if it held secrets yet to be revealed. Her research into human psychology had convinced her that there was a pattern to their interventions, a logic that simply operated on principles the galaxy didn't yet understand. They're not random, she said to the empty air. There's a purpose to their actions, a method to their madness. They just think in ways we haven't learned to recognize yet. As the war room emptied, the empty seat remained holding space for a species that would probably never officially join the Galactic Council, but would continue to reshape it with every inadvertent intervention. Somewhere in space, humans were probably already en route to the next crisis, armed with nothing more than curiosity, creativity, and an apparently inexhaustible supply of innovative recipes. The tradition of the empty seat would continue as symbol of respect, caution, and recognition of a force that couldn't be controlled, couldn't be predicted, but somehow consistently made the galaxy a more interesting and peaceful place. Whether this was by design or accident, remained one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. In the Meridian Junction, the cooking competition continued transforming what should have been a battlefield into a celebration of cultural exchange. The humans moved among the participants, offering encouragement and secretly pleased that their simple food truck had once again accidentally prevented a war. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, another conflict was brewing. Another situation that was developing that would require careful planning and strategic consideration. When the Galactic Council convened to address it, there would be an empty chair waiting, holding space for the universe's most accidentally effective peacekeepers. The galaxy had learned to expect the unexpected from humanity, but they had also learned to hope for it, because somehow in ways that defied all conventional wisdom. Human interventions consistently led to better outcomes for everyone involved, even if the methods were completely insane. Years later, when historians compiled records of this era, they would note that the period of the empty chair coincided with the longest sustained peace in galactic history. Wars still occurred, but they increasingly ended in unexpected ways that left all parties better off than they began. Food festivals replaced battle fleets with increasing frequency. Cultural exchanges became more valuable than territorial conquests. And through it all, that chair remained empty, serving as a reminder that sometimes the most effective way to solve galactic problems was to let humanity stumble into them with their peculiar combination of good intentions, innovative thinking, and complete disregard for conventional approaches to conflict resolution. The universe, it seemed, had become a more interesting place since humans discovered they weren't alone, and the empty chair would ensure they always had a place at the table, whether they chose to occupy it or not. After all, as the galaxy had learned, the humans' greatest strength wasn't in their direct participation. It was in their ability to change everything simply by existing. Creating and sharing their wonderfully weird solutions to problems the rest of the galaxy didn't even know it had. The tradition of the empty seat would endure, a testament to the beer of the unpredictable, the value of the unconventional, and the remarkable ability of a single species to transform galactic civilization, one accidental intervention at a time. And somewhere out there, humans continued to explore, create, and inadvertently solve problems with their unique blend of optimism, creativity, and determination to make friends wherever they went. The empty chair stood ready for whatever unexpected solution humanity would stumble upon next.